Glad to be back with you again. We hope these videos are encouraging. Now we're going to talk about whether or not our relationship with the Lord is actually a relationship that operates according to normal relationship rules. I want to start this story by telling you that he asked me a question one time. He showed me that expression that we use often in the States, that Christianity is not a religion, it's a relationship. And I could just sort of see it written in front of me. And then he said, Bill, what if it really is a relationship? And I was caught off guard because I go, Lord, you know it is a relationship, and you know I know the answer to your question. So why are you asking me if it's a relationship? And his answer was a little bit startling. He said, well, I just want to tell you, you are not acting like it's a relationship. And I realized I probably wasn't, but I was kind of confused. So I asked him, can you explain yourself? What do you mean by that? And so then he said, well, what did you do the first thing Saturday morning whenever you saw someone new or someone that morning, the first time? And I thought for a minute, it was like we were at a retreat at a hotel. And I thought, well, what is the first thing I did to everyone when I saw them Saturday morning? I think I just said, good morning. And then he rephrased it as though he said, when was the last time you told me good morning as though I was a real person? And I realized that when he phrased it that way, I probably didn't think of him as a real person. So I'm not saying that he's just a human, but I am thinking he is actually a person. And I'm wondering what he's getting at. So when he says that I'm not treating him like a person, I realize there's a category for me to explore. Now, one of the times he clarified this for me was when we had a board meeting in London on a Thursday and a Friday, and then Saturday morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning, he woke me up and he goes, Bill, good meeting you guys had. I wish I'd been invited. And I realized, okay, there it goes again. I didn't invite him into this meeting, even though everybody in the meeting was a believer, and we said that we were stewarding these companies for the Lord, but we forgot to invite the Lord into the meeting as though he was a real person. And I began to see that, if I saw him, I think I would know what to do. But because he's invisible, it's really difficult to remember that he's a real person. Well, he took this idea deeper one time when he asked me another question. He said, if I spent a couple hours with a friend at Starbucks, was it because of that person's character or their personality? I thought about it for a minute, and I kind of went out on a limb, and I go, honestly, I think it's their personality. I know that they need to have a certain kind of character before I'll spend time with them, but if I like them, it's probably because of the personality. And then the Lord said, well, what do you think of mine? And before I could stop myself, I just blurted out, I didn't know you had one. I went to seminary. We studied only your character. I know you're really, 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 really good. But I have no idea if you're fun because it's not something we ever addressed. And he said, that's actually a problem because relationships flourish on personality alignment more than most anything else. And I realized, I bet he has a marvelous personality, but I simply have never thought about it, and I don't know what to do to understand it better. So I asked him, could you give me a hand with understanding your personality? And he said, do the math on my first miracle. And I didn't know what he meant at first, and I realized the first miracle, oh, that's the water into wine. Do the math. What's he getting at? Oh, I know. It talks about 6 pots of water, but I have no perception of what that really means. So what if I convert it by using mathematics into wine bottles? So there's kind of an estimate there. It's not a precise number, but I calculated that it was something over 900 bottles of wine. So I know what a bottle of wine looks like and how much it holds. And I went down to a store and I took some photographs of pallets of cases of wine until I could see what does 900 bottles of wine look like. And I thought, that's a lot of wine. And then he rephrased the question. So what does it tell you about the personality of someone who brings 900 bottles of wine to the tail end of a party? And I thought, oh, I don't think I know who you are. I think you're somebody different in terms of your personality. I never imagined you to be that guy. And so I was beginning to find myself really attracted to his personality. And then I asked for another clue. And he said, is it possible for anyone to be better at being good than I am? And so I kind of went out on a limb and I go, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say you're the best at being good that there is, because you're just the goodest. That's what it means, partly to be God. I just don't think anybody can be better at being good than you. And then he said this: so whenever you see something that you know intuitively is good, particularly relationship-wise, and especially family, parents, if it's good, I want you to begin to think of me as being the source of what you see. So I immediately thought of a father tickling a little boy. Is that good? I think everybody says that's good. We just intuitively know that's a good thing. And so he's saying, yeah, they get that from me. I'm a better tickler than the guy that you see tickling. And I realized, oh, so you're the source of all of this stuff. And I realized when I would walk with my little girl and I'd bend over and kiss her on the top of the head, that just felt wonderful. I bet I get that from him. I bet that's what his personality is like. And so I began to see that he expressed, rather that we express, so many of his good characteristics because we get them from him. And it's fair to see that. That is part of his personality. So I now say that I think he's the best dad in the world, technically the universe. So I have the best dad in the universe. What is that like? And I can imagine very often that those things that I experience because they come from the best dad in the world. And it really makes me feel so safe and secure. But the last thing that he did that conveyed his personality, I've never quite recovered from. I was speaking at a church overseas, and he interrupted me right in the middle of the sermon. Sometimes he's kind of inconsiderate that way. And what he said to me was he wanted me to reenact the prodigal son returning home 2 times. And then he wanted to ask the congregation which one is most biblical. So I've learned if you get a sense of him leading you to say something, you say it even though you don't know how the sentence is going to end. And so I asked the congregation, would they be willing to do an experiment? And of course they said, of course. And so then I asked my friend Michael, who was in the back of the auditorium. I said, Michael, would you mind pretending to be the prodigal son returning home? And we're going to do this twice and then just ask everybody which one's the most biblical. And at that moment, I have no idea where this is going to go. And so Michael says, sure. We had a good friendship. And so I kind of position myself on the platform and he starts walking up. And then the first time I hop off the platform and I kind of halfway run to him and give him a mild hug and tell him I'm so glad he's home. And I'm using primarily words to build him up. This is such a great day. We're so glad to see you. I'm so happy that you're home. And then we take a few steps up to the front of the auditorium as though we're returning home. And then I stop him and I go, you know, Michael, before we get home, I think we ought to review sort of family values. I want to make sure we're on the same page. And so we kind of lean in that direction, and that identifies we haven't forgotten about his sin. And everybody's sort of laughing, kind of snickering a little bit. But it'll be great, Michael. It'll be fine. So let's take a few more steps. And then I stop again. And I say, you know, we also ought to look at maybe a financial repayment plan, because we have a lot of money that's been involved. And now everybody's laughing out loud. I think we all sort of suspect God may be a little bit like that. Not quite as forgiving as the story tells us. And so I said, but it'll be fine. It'll be great. It'll all work out. Okay, good. That's the first one, Michael. Now let's go back. You go back and return one more time. And again, I'm not sure what's going to happen. So this time he went back and I think he touched the wall and he turned around, and then something came over me for lack of a better word, I just feel like the Spirit of God flooded me with love for Michael. And now I see him and I scream his name as loud as I can. I even scared myself, and I flew off that platform. I broke my little toe, and I got to him before I think he had taken 2 steps forward. And I was lifting him up, and I think he's like 6 feet tall, and I'm 5'7", and I'm just going nuts that Michael, my son who was dead and is alive, is now home. And I'm kissing him on the face, and I'm screaming his name, and I'm hugging him. Now I'm beginning to cry, and I'm thinking, where's this surge of love coming from? We're just pretending, but it wasn't completely pretending. Someone was charging with a real feeling of love. And I remember thinking to myself, could God possibly feel this way about me? What would it feel like to get hit by him the way I hit Michael? What would it feel to be kissed by him the way I'm kissing Michael? What would it feel like to announce to the whole city, we're having the biggest party the city's ever seen? Get the Marriott, breakfast, lunch, and supper buffets on me for the whole town. I was just overjoyed with this supernatural love for him. And I realized that's his personality coming out. That's who he is. And so I never have quite recovered from that. It's shook me up and continues to impact me, being aware of the unbelievable personality of our Heavenly Father. So I hope that you can ask him to reveal his personality to you, because personality is what relationships really thrive on. Once you get hit by him and smothering you with kisses and hugging you like that, you never have to have someone tell you, oh, you really ought to spend time with him. That would be a good spiritual thing to do. That doesn't make any sense in this context. He is the most attractive person in the universe. So enjoy the relationship, enjoy him, and just ask him to show you whatever it is he wants to show you about who he is and who you are and what you can be together. Thank you very much.